What would you do if the homeless girl begging on the roadside turned out to be blood of one of the richest families in the land? A billionaire stops his car ready to ignore her, until he sees the necklace around her neck. What he discovers about her identity will shake his entire family and change her life forever. Please, before we continue, like, share and subscribe for more interesting stories. Adrian Cole sat in the back of his sleek black SUV, the leather interior polished to perfection, the hum of the engine a steady background as the driver navigated through the late afternoon traffic. His mind was elsewhere, on the business meeting awaiting him, on the documents spread across his lap, on the decisions that could shift millions in or out of his company. His world was always numbers, strategy, and control. But then, as his gaze drifted absently to the window, something unusual caught his eye. On the roadside, half hidden between the crowd of pedestrians weaving through cars, sat a young woman. Her clothes were threadbare, clinging to her thin frame, her hair unkempt yet not without a certain quiet grace. Unlike the others who waved, shouted, or aggressively pressed against car windows for money, she simply sat with a small cardboard sign resting against her knees. The words were faint, written with a shaky hand. "Please, just food." Adrian's brow furrowed. Begging was not new to him, he'd seen it countless times, almost immune to it. But there was something in her stillness, her dignity in the face of desperation, that struck him. As the SUV inched forward, the girl rose hesitantly and approached his window. Her voice, when it came, was soft, almost apologetic. "Please, sir, water. Just water." Adrian lowered his gaze fully to her then, intending to dismiss her politely. And that was when he saw it. Around her neck, hanging from a fraying string of chain, was a necklace. Not an ordinary trinket, not something one could pick up at a market stall. The design was unmistakable, intricate, handcrafted, with a small gemstone set at the center. Though dulled with time, Adrian knew it at once. His heart skipped. That necklace had belonged to his late mother. Or, at least, one identical to it. Only 3 pieces had ever been made by a renowned jeweler decades ago, commissioned for 3 wealthy families. His mother's was one. He had grown up watching it gleam around her neck during family gatherings, a symbol of heritage and pride. What was it doing here, on the neck of a homeless girl? "Stop the car," Adrian said suddenly. His assistant glanced up, startled. "Sir, we're already late." "I said stop." The driver obeyed, pulling over. Adrian pushed open the door, stepping into the thick, noisy air of the street. The girl recoiled slightly, clutching the necklace protectively as if she feared he might snatch it. "Where did you get that?" Adrian asked, his tone low but intense. The girl blinked, confused. It was my mother's. She gave it to me before her voice broke. Before she passed." Adrian stared at her, unsettled. This was no ordinary coincidence. The necklace glinted faintly in the fading light, holding within it secrets Adrian never expected to face that day. The noise of the street pressed in around them, honking cars, impatient drivers shouting, vendors calling out their wares. But for Adrian, all of it faded into the background. His focus was fixed entirely on the girl and the necklace glinting weakly at her chest. The girl shifted uncomfortably under his gaze. Her fingers, thin and pale, gripped the pendant as though it were her only lifeline. "Please, sir," she whispered, "I don't want trouble. I only asked for water." Adrian's assistant stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Sir, we should go. She's just another beggar. Don't waste your time." Adrian ignored him. His instincts, sharpened from years of business and negotiation, told him this was no random encounter. There was a story here, and it was one he needed to hear. "What's your name?" Adrian asked the girl. She hesitated, eyes darting nervously to the moving cars as though seeking escape. "Amara," she said finally, her voice soft but clear. "Amara," Adrian repeated, testing the name on his tongue. "And your mother, where did she get that necklace?" Her lips trembled as she answered. "She always told me it was special. That it came from her family long before I was born. She never took it off, not until she left this world. She said it would remind me of where I come from, even if I didn't know the place." Her words struck a chord deep within Adrian. He studied her face more closely, the shape of her eyes, the subtle sharpness of her jawline. Something about her looked familiar, though he couldn't place it yet. "Come with me," he said suddenly. Amara froze, suspicion flashing in her eyes. "Why?" "I'll get you food," Adrian replied calmly. "And water. But I need to know more about that necklace." She hesitated, torn between fear and the gnawing hunger evident in the way her stomach tightened beneath her ragged shirt. Finally she gave a small nod. Adrian gestured to his driver. Take us somewhere quiet. Minutes later, they were seated in a modest restaurant tucked away from the main road. The staff, recognizing Adrian's presence, scrambled to make the booth as private as possible. A waiter placed steaming plates of rice and chicken before them, along with bottled water. Amara's hands shook as she reached for the food. She ate quickly, almost desperately, before pausing mid-bite, embarrassed by her own hunger. You don't have to rush, Adrian said gently. For a while, silence hung between them, broken only by the clatter of cutlery. Then Adrian leaned forward, his tone firm but not unkind. Amara, I need you to tell me everything. About your mother. About how you ended up here. Amara set down her spoon, her eyes misting with unshed tears. She swallowed hard as though summoning courage. My mother's name was Grace, she began. She died when I was very young. My father disappeared before that, I barely remember him. After she was gone, I lived with relatives for a while, until they decided I was a burden. They put me out. Since then I've had no one. Only this necklace. It's all I have left of her. Adrian's chest tightened. Grace. The name rang a bell. It tugged at memories he hadn't revisited in years. This wasn't just chance. Something told him he was standing on the edge of a discovery that could unravel secrets long buried in his family's history. Adrian sat back in the booth, his eyes narrowing slightly as Amara spoke. She had stopped eating now, her plate half finished, her gaze fixed on the table as if afraid that meeting his eyes might break her fragile composure. Grace. The name echoed in his mind, pulling at half-forgotten conversations from his childhood. He remembered hushed arguments between adults, his mother's voice raised in anger, his uncle's face red with frustration. A woman had been mentioned, disgraced, disowned. But a child? He had never heard of that. The waiter returned with fresh water. Adrian waved him away, then folded his hands carefully in front of him. His tone, though even, carried an edge of command. Amara, he said, do you remember anything about your father? His name, what he did? Amara's fingers brushed over the necklace, her eyes distant. My mother never spoke of him much. She said he was kind but troubled. I only remember that he left one day and never came back. I was too small to understand. By the time she died, I had no one left. Adrian studied her. She wasn't lying, at least not deliberately. Her voice carried the weight of someone who had endured too much loss to fabricate stories. And yet, the necklace, that piece alone tethered her to a world she didn't even know existed. His assistant leaned toward him, speaking in a low whisper. Sir, I strongly advise against wasting more time here. We don't know this girl. She could be manipulating you. Adrian's jaw tightened. No, he said firmly. There's something real here. He pulled out his phone, scrolling to a familiar number. Within moments he was connected to a trusted private investigator he had used for years. I need a background check, Adrian said quietly, keeping his voice low so Amara wouldn't hear. Name Amara. Mother's name, Grace. Find everything, records, history, connections. And check for any link to the Cole family. Report to me directly. He ended the call and slipped the phone back into his jacket. Amara looked at him curiously. Why are you helping me? The question caught him off guard. For a moment, Adrian had no ready answer. He could have said curiosity, or that the necklace reminded him of his mother. But the truth ran deeper. Something in her presence unsettled the certainty he usually carried. I believe, he said finally, that you're connected to something bigger than you realize. Her brow furrowed. I don't understand. You will, Adrian replied. His gaze hardened with resolve. But for now, I need you to trust me. Amara looked down at her hands, then back at him. There was fear in her eyes, but also a flicker of fragile hope, a hope she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. That night, as Adrian left the restaurant, he knew one thing with certainty. Amara wasn't just another homeless girl. She was the key to a buried chapter of his family's past. And if he was right, uncovering the truth would shake his entire world. 3 days passed, each one stretching longer than the last. Adrian went about his business with his usual precision. Boardroom meetings, contract negotiations, late-night reviews of financial reports. But beneath it all, his thoughts kept circling back to Amara. The investigator's silence gnawed at him. He was a man who thrived on control, on having answers before questions were even asked. But now he was waiting, something he despised. On the 4th evening his phone buzzed. The name on the screen made his pulse quicken. He answered at once, stepping away from the polished dinner table where his assistant was briefing him on upcoming deals. Tell me you have something, Adrian said. The investigator's voice was steady, but there was a weight behind it. I have more than something. I have everything. Adrian shut his study door and leaned against it. Go on. The investigator paused, then began. Amara is exactly who she says she is. No criminal record, no fraud. Just a girl who's been surviving the streets. But the name Grace, that's where things get interesting. Grace was once Grace Cole. Your uncle's daughter. Adrian stiffened. That's impossible. My uncle had no daughter. He did. She was his only child. But years ago she fell in love with a man your family disapproved of, someone from a poor background. When she refused to end it, she was cut off completely. Disowned. From what I gathered, her name was scrubbed from family discussions. Memory stirred inside Adrian. His mother's voice, sharp with anger. His uncle's silence at family dinners. A shadow that hung in the air but was never explained. The investigator continued. Grace lived quietly with her husband until tragedy struck. He disappeared under circumstances that were never investigated. Soon after, Grace herself died of illness. And Amara was left behind. Forgotten. Abandoned. But the necklace she wears? It matches the custom piece gifted to Grace by her father before she was disowned. Adrian's throat tightened. He pressed a hand against the desk, trying to steady himself. So you're telling me? She is your cousin, Mr. Cole? What? Which means she has a rightful claim to the Cole estate, should it ever come into dispute. For a moment Adrian said nothing. His mind raced through the implications. His family was already a battlefield, cousins and siblings circling like wolves over his grandfather's inheritance. To bring Amara into that storm would be like dropping a match into a pool of oil. Yet, the image of her at the roadside returned to him, thin, hungry, clutching the necklace like it was her only anchor in the world. His cousin. Flesh and blood. Thank you, Adrian said finally, his voice low. Send me the documents. I'll handle the rest. When the call ended, Adrian sat in silence, staring at the fire flickering in the study's hearth. Amara wasn't just a girl with a necklace. She was a Cole. And now, whether she liked it or not, her existence was about to change everything. The evening air was cool, the kind that carried a stillness before a storm. Adrian had chosen the location carefully, a quiet cafe on the edge of town, far from the places his family frequented. Discretion was vital. The last thing he needed was gossip reaching the wrong ears before he even told Amara the truth. She arrived hesitantly, dressed in a borrowed blouse and skirt Adrian's assistant had provided. Though the clothes were plain, they gave her a dignity she hadn't felt in years. Still, she looked nervous, her fingers brushing over the necklace as though for comfort. Why did you ask to see me again? Amara asked softly, sliding into the seat across from him. You've already done more than anyone else ever has. Adrian studied her carefully. He saw the fragility in her posture, but beneath it, he noticed resilience, the kind only hardship could build. It confirmed what he already knew. She deserved to hear the truth, but it would not be easy to bear. There are things about your mother, Adrian began, his voice steady, that you don't know. Things that were kept from you. And from me too. Amara frowned. What do you mean? Adrian leaned forward, lowering his voice. Your mother, Grace, she wasn't just any woman. She was Grace Cole. My uncle's daughter. That makes you my cousin. For a moment, Amara simply stared at him, her lips parting slightly in disbelief. Then she shook her head. No, that can't be right. My mother never told me she came from people like you. She couldn't, Adrian said firmly. She was disowned when she married your father. My family cut her off, erased her from our history. That's why you were left alone, because no one wanted to acknowledge her existence. Or yours. Tears welled in Amara's eyes. Her grip on the necklace tightened. So all this time, I had family. And they let me starve on the streets. Adrian's chest ached at the pain in her voice. Not all of us knew. I didn't. But now that I do, I won't turn away from you. Her gaze snapped to his, searching for any trace of pity or deceit. Why tell me this? Why not just leave me where you found me? Because the truth matters, Adrian replied, his tone firm. But you must understand, this truth is dangerous. My family is powerful and not all of them will welcome you. Some will see you as a threat. They'll fight you, deny you, even try to destroy you. Amara's breath trembled. I don't want their wealth. I never wanted anything but belonging. I know, Adrian said softly. But sometimes the mere fact of who you are is enough to make you a target. Silence settled between them, heavy and unyielding. Amara lowered her gaze, tears slipping down her cheeks. For the first time in her life, she wasn't just a forgotten beggar. She was someone who mattered, yet the cost of that identity terrified her. Adrian reached across the table, placing his hand gently over hers. "You're not alone anymore, Amara. Whatever comes next, we face it together." Adrian knew the storm he was about to unleash. His family thrived on power plays and silent wars, each relative circling the estate like predators waiting for weakness. Bringing Amara into their world would provoke outrage, denial, and danger. But he couldn't hide her, not if he wanted to honor the truth. The gathering was set in the grand dining hall of the family estate, a place where chandeliers hung like frozen lightning and portraits of ancestors glared down from the walls. At the head of the table sat Adrian's uncle, Amara's grandfather, his once sharp eyes now dulled with age but still commanding respect. As Adrian entered with Amara at his side, conversations faltered. Every face turned, registering the strange young woman walking timidly beside him. Dressed modestly, her necklace gleamed faintly, the single piece of evidence tying her to them. "Adrian," one of his cousins sneered, "you brought a guest? This is not a charity banquet." Adrian's voice cut through the air. "She is not a guest. She is family." The room erupted with murmurs. His uncle's hand slammed against the table, silencing the noise. "Explain yourself." Adrian gestured toward Amara. "This is Amara, daughter of Grace. Your granddaughter." For a heartbeat, silence. Then laughter erupted from one of his uncles. "Grace? That name is forbidden here. She was cast out. Erased." "Erased does not mean she never existed," Adrian snapped. He pulled documents from his briefcase and laid them on the table. Birth certificates, letters, and finally the DNA results. "The evidence is clear. Amara is Grace's daughter. Which makes her one of us." The patriarch's gaze shifted to Amara, his face unreadable. But others were less restrained. "She's an imposter," one cousin shouted. "She just wants money," another accused. "She'll tear apart everything we've built," a third added, venom dripping from every word. Amara shrank back under the weight of their hostility, her knuckles white around the necklace. Adrian stepped protectively in front of her. "Enough. She is family whether you like it or not." The days following the introduction were chaos. Whispers spread through the estate like wildfire. Some relatives launched immediate attacks, hiring lawyers to challenge the DNA results, spreading rumors that Amara was a con artist Adrian had planted to secure more influence. Amara, unused to such hostility, struggled to keep her composure. Adrian found her one night in the estate gardens, her face streaked with tears. "I don't belong here," she whispered. "They'll never accept me." Adrian's expression softened. "They don't have to. You belong because you are blood. That can't be denied." "But I don't want their money," she said fiercely. "I don't want their houses or their power. All I ever wanted was family." Adrian nodded slowly. "Then take only that. Let the rest fight over scraps of paper. But know this, you're no longer invisible. You're no longer alone." His words gave her strength, but the family war was only beginning. Some cousins plotted quietly, determined to force her out before her claim grew stronger. One even attempted to bribe her to disappear. But Amara, though shaken, refused to give up the one thing she had always longed for, acknowledgement of her mother's truth. The inevitable confrontation came during another family assembly, called to discuss inheritance disputes. Adrian knew his relatives had set a trap, but he brought Amara anyway. This time the accusations were bolder. "She's nothing," a cousin shouted. "A beggar from the streets. How dare she stand here and call herself a Cole?" Adrian's calm smile unnerved them. He placed the necklace on the table, its worn chain gleaming under the chandelier. "This was given to Grace by her father. Only 3 were made. This one never left her neck until she passed it to her daughter. No forger could replicate the years of wear, the engravings known only to our family jeweler. You can deny her, but you cannot deny this." Gasps rippled through the hall. The patriarch, who had remained silent all evening, finally spoke. His voice was weak but steady. "She is Grace's child. I see her mother in her eyes. I failed Grace once. I will not fail her daughter." The hall fell silent. The old man's words carried the weight of law. But acceptance was not universal. Faces twisted with anger, cousins stormed out, vowing to fight this until the end. Yet for the first time Amara stood tall, her shoulders squared, her voice clear. "I don't want your wealth," she declared. "I don't want your titles. I only want the truth to be acknowledged. My mother was one of you. And so am I." Her words cut through the tension like a blade. Even those who despised her could not deny the fire in her voice. In the weeks that followed, the estate simmered with unrest. Lawyers drew up documents, factions formed, and threats were whispered behind closed doors. But through it all, Adrian stood by Amara's side. The patriarch arranged for her to live in a smaller house on the estate grounds, not as a claimant to fortune, but as a rightful member of the family. Some relatives avoided her, others eyed her with suspicion, but a few, those less poisoned by greed, offered quiet kindness. Amara adjusted slowly. She studied, rebuilt her confidence, and learned the history of the family she had never known. She remained cautious, never asking for more than she needed. But the necklace at her throat became more than a relic. It was a banner of truth, worn proudly now rather than hidden. Adrian often visited her. One evening, as they walked along the garden paths, he said quietly, "You changed everything, Amara. You reminded this family of what matters." She smiled faintly, her eyes glistening. "I didn't come here to change anything. I only wanted to know where I belonged." "And now you do," Adrian said firmly. "Whether they like it or not." Months later, Amara stood before her mother's unmarked grave, a place she had avoided out of fear and grief. Adrian stood beside her, silent but steady. She knelt, pressing her hand over the soil. "Mama, they know now. They can't erase you anymore. I carry your name, your blood, your truth." Her tears fell freely, but they were no longer tears of despair. They were tears of release. When she rose, Adrian placed a hand on her shoulder. "What comes next is your choice. You don't have to live their way. You can build your own life with your own terms." Amara nodded, her face calm. "I will. But I'll never forget who I am anymore." As they walked away, the necklace caught the fading light, gleaming like a quiet flame. Amara was no longer the homeless girl on the roadside. She was a woman who had claimed her truth, reclaimed her dignity, and stepped into a future no longer bound by silence. And beside her, Adrian knew that the discovery he made that day, when he saw a necklace glinting on a stranger's neck, had forever altered the destiny of them both.